where time meets style.
Kevin, welcome to the Time Meets Style podcast. How you doing, man?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. So let me give my audience a quick background and an introduction on your behalf, and then I'll give you an opportunity to fill in any holes that I may have in the intro. So, Kevin, you are the head of marketing for Marc Nolan shoes. So you lead creative direction, product design, as well as strategy, and you live in San Diego. Previously, you spent 5 years leading a strategy or leading strategy, e-commerce, and marketing for a self-development brand, Intelligent Change, and helped them grow into a profitable 7-figure business, leading to some pretty cool partnerships. And early on in your career, you started an online rare books company, which is very interesting, selling to professors, directors, actors, and bibliophiles. I haven't heard that word in a long time, bibliophile. But your specialty is connecting the dots of big picture thinking with executional chops to make it happen. So what did I miss, Kevin? Did I do okay there?
Yeah, I did a great job. Did a nice background check.
Yeah, absolutely. You're pretty searchable and findable on the web. So I was able to just extract some stuff that I found through a quick search, and there we go. Obviously, I want to start with Marc Nolan. I've got some of your brand logo behind me. We've got some amazing product that we're going to be featuring a little bit later in the pod as well. But super curious to have you just kind of share with us, just talking about what's the Marc Nolan origin story?
Yeah, so I joined the brand in 2019, but the brand officially began in 2018. The owner, Sebastian, he started Marc Nolan after starting another company called Durson Shoes. And Durson Shoes was kind of more a straight dress shoe brand. He had a store in Wicker Park in Chicago where he shared space with a upscale suiting company. And then the complement was his shoes. Durson Shoes were the dress shoes. But Durson Shoes was pretty much completely pre-existing shoes that he would import from China. And it was going okay, but he always had this knack for wanting to do something more creative. So his business partner with the suiting company decided to get his own space. And he's like, this is the perfect time to start my own brand, Marc Nolan. About 70-80% of it when he started in early 2018 was dress shoes, and then maybe 20% of it was boots and kind of hybrid sneakers. And he really wanted the brand to kind of be a representation of both his best friend Mark, who he first met when he came from Poland to Chicago. From Poland to New York. Mark was his mentor, and now one of his best friends who was in the shoe business. That's the Mark and Marc Nolan. And then he just had his son at the time who was Nolan, hence the name Marc Nolan. And yeah, so pretty much for a year, he was doing this sort of dress shoes, kind of pushing that heavily. About maybe 8-9 months into the business, through a mutual friend, he met Chancellor. Cam Chancellor was part of the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom.
Right.
He is a 4-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl winner. Unfortunately, Cam had a career-ending injury, and about 2 years after, he just invested in a bunch of businesses. And one of the things he wanted to do was a shoe company. Cam came on board, 9 months in, that helped provide a little bit of boost to the brand. He did actually a shoe we still have to this day, which is called the Boardwalk Horse Bit Loafer. It's a hybrid bit loafer sneaker. And with that success, that kind of started to change sort of the direction from dress shoes to kind of more a hybrid comfort focused. Fast forward about 3-4 months, and I was not really getting deep into it, kind of in between the journal company and then looking for doing something freelancing. And while I don't really recommend it, Sebastian posted on Upwork for email marketing help. And that's how I actually joined the business.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then about 2-3 months into it, I kind of like started suggesting design changes. And my biggest
Mm.
was basically saying ditch all your dress shoes and focus the 20% you have in sneakers and boots, switch the entire business over to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much transformed the business.
100%. And he listened to you. I mean, looking at your product lineup, it's pretty much everything you suggested. So, no, that's super smart. And you know, one thing actually I did notice, and I had this as a question a little bit later on, but I want to bring it up now because you mentioned like the Chancellor connection and, you know, the pro sports athlete and the boost that provides to the business. I noticed across like your social media, you've got celebrities, right? So you've got like, you know, there's Robert Downey Jr., you've got Christian Kirk of the NFL, you've got Ozzie Guillen of the MLB featured on your IG. And, you know, those are just like some recent posts. There's probably more that I haven't even mentioned. How do you like, are these celebrities endorsing Marc Nolan, or do you just like notice them wearing Marc Nolan, or is it a combination of the two? How does that work exactly?
It's a combination. Like some of them, like Ozzy was original customer when Sebastian had the store in Wicker Park in Chicago.
Right.
So he was like an early, just like fan of the brand. Ozzy just dresses more boldly in general. So like he liked that we were doing that. Other people say like Robert Downey Jr. is in the past year, we do work with like a PR. I got Pierre Michael, who's awesome. He'll send out a number of shoes to stylists and celebrities. These are currently where we're at are all just free sends. Like we're not paying anybody to wear shoes.
Right.
With Robert Downey Jr. in particular, if he doesn't like the company, like I mean, he's doing well on his own. Like he won't wear it. So like we're very fortunate that he actually likes the brand, continues to wear it.
Right.
But yeah, the majority, it's like we just started getting to sort of paid influencers, but I mean that's in the past like 3 months. Otherwise, people would
Right.
just send them shoes. If they like it, they wear it.
Yeah, no, that's super cool, man. I mean, what a moment in the trajectory of your brand when you start to see celebrities, influencers wearing your product by choice because they like it. I mean, there's no better endorsement um, to help grow your business and create awareness. And that's very cool. I'm a huge fan of Ozzie Guillen. Obviously, you know, brought a world championship to Chicago as a manager, and definitely has like an edge to his managerial style. And I guess he brings that
Yeah,
edge to his wardrobe as well. Very,
yeah.
very
Like
cool.
we did a photo shoot with him for fall winter of last year,
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean, I got to meet him in person. He's awesome. He's hilarious, and
Mhm.
I mean, that's like exactly when he does his announcing. He just wants to dress more bold, and that's
Mhm.
exactly what we're trying to do too. Help men dress a little bit more bold.
Can you share any of the? I mean, is any business is starting up, and obviously, you know, Sebastian is the guy behind it. But I am curious, like, are you aware of any of the like early struggles that he may have faced in the business, or maybe even some of the struggles that you've seen yourself as you've come on board that, you know, any brands, any product focused company, you know, may run into and how you all overcame that?
So when I came on board, part of the reason I came on board was, I mean, in the beginning, Sebastian and Mark Nolan as a whole was really struggling. I mean, this is prior to COVID, but even like dress shoes then were kind of the outs. The exception of maybe like really formal events like weddings, or if Wall Street, I mean, dress shoes was just a declining market and the
Mhm.
business was struggling. I mean, it was losing money every month. Hence why he was so eager to listen to me to like switch over to like the small percent that was driving, you know, the majority of the revenue.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, that was a pivotal moment. Like
Mm.
if we would have switched strategies a bit, like it would have gone out of business.
Jeez.
And then from there, it was just continually pushing to be more bold and really experimental. I mean, in the beginning, we didn't have a lot to lose. I mean, we're going up against giants in the industry, so it's like, okay, let's just do, yeah,
Mhm.
just let's do crazy shit. Like, let's mix, like, let's play with materials. Let's try this
Mhm.
color. Let's try this. Like, let's just do, you know, these swings because what do we have to lose?
Mm-hmm.
We're fortunate that we work with a factory where they're able to, get different materials and different outsoles and different details that maybe not, like a Cole Haan would get. Like they want to be more conservative. So
Right.
we're like, okay, we have this as an edge. Let's utilize this to our advantage and really kind of double down on a more clear concept of being this like funkier kind of shoe brand.
I absolutely love everything about your brain because it is different. It's bold, and it absolutely catches the eye. Talk to me a little bit about like what is your who is your ideal customer?
Yeah. So demographically, I'd say we're probably around like the guy who's like in his 40s. Um,
Mhm.
but as like we like to say, we're always for really just the guy who's into fashion or maybe like kind of always wanted to get into fashion, who just
Mhm.
really wants to like express their style.
Mhm.
There's I live like in San Diego and even like Chicago can be like very more conservative. And so
Mhm.
we're kind of for the the guys who want to push their style, who want to get dressed up, who, you know, are thinking about their outfits.
Mhm.
Fortunately, like men's fashion in general in the last number of years, like it's just grown and grown and grown.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's in the beginning, it was a harder convincing to like, you know, express yourself with color or print or, different
Mhm.
patterns. And so we're really for the guy who's like wanting to dress up.
Mhm.
And we're kind of for that guy who's maybe a sneakerhead in his 20s, who's now entering his
Mm.
30s, who's kind of wants something that's still expressive, but maybe a little bit more grown up, but more
Yep.
dressed up. So we've seen a lot of like former sneakerheads kind of wear shoes too, and well, and sneakerheads still. I feel like 30s plus tends to be like our age range.
Totally see that. I mean, I'm a complete sneakerhead. I've got every silhouette of a Jordan, Yeezy, a Dunk. I've got a ton of New Balances. I've got some pretty unique shoes for sure. And what I love about your brand is it actually is like very, very much aligned to the boldness and like the character that I like to show in my outfits and my ability to match colorways, but also be able to tell a story around what I may be wearing on my foot and how that actually connects with what's on my wrist. And like we'll get to that a little bit later in the pod, but definitely a really really cool story about the brand, and completely got where your customer focus is. And I feel like you're speaking to me for sure. I do want to get back to one other point that you raised around just kind of like the early struggles in the business and like that moment when Sebastian brought you on board and you're like, hey, we got to change the product mix, right? So I imagine, there was obviously a lot of analysis and thought that went into that recommendation that you made to Sebastian. But why don't you think, why didn't Sebastian see that? Like, what was he missing? And like, what was that added perspective? Was it literally just like an outsider view coming in and being like, hey man, you got to get your kind of head out of it. And like, let's look at the bigger picture here. What was that like missing piece?
I think it had to do a lot with outside perspective and the fact that like what
Mhm.
he was trying wasn't working. I
Mm.
think he did have a certain amount of respect, like from where I came from, like I doing the journal company, learning the ins and outs of like direct to consumer. I learned a
Mhm.
lot. I had consulted with other e-commerce brands, and I think at that point he was just willing to like try something different. So I think listening to my recommendation and then starting to see once Cam shoe came on board that those
Mhm.
sales were starting to outpace just the traditional dress shoes. Like he was just like,
Mhm.
you know what, if I'm going to continue or just I don't have the luxury of being able to slowly just like fade out the dress shoes. Like we need to make a drastic shift. Otherwise I'm going to run out of money. Like he
Yeah.
was just willing to try that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I guess what I forgot to mention too, talk about like the sort of sneakerhead community.
Mhm.
So, I mean, being from Chicago into Jordans, like
Mhm.
I love the Jordan 4. I love
Mhm.
like the playoff and me and him then worked on this boot, which we still have, which is called the Aiden. It's Aiden black and red, kind of modeled off of that shoe. And that was a shoe that actually really, aside from like what we had, really took us off.
Right.
I think New Edition wore it that Christmas or like early in the new year, and then like that exploded sales and like got such a different customer base. You got sneakerheads, you got people who are like into like the 90s, New Edition, and like that did 10 to 20 times what the next best-selling shoe was.
Wow.
And that continues to be a bestseller to this day. Yeah, if you look on our site, it's at Aiden black and red.
Yeah, that's cool.
One of the most like, yeah, I mean, somebody associates now with like the red bottom shoes.
Your creative process, want to learn a little bit more about that. We've kind of alluded to like the boldness of the brand. You've kind of got this interest in sourcing materials that are a little bit different, and that you're celebrating self-expression in the brand and as people slip on your boots and in your sneakers and such. So talk to me a little bit about, you know, what goes into your creative process and what the inspiration is behind that.
So I'm entirely like self-taught. I did not go to school for shoe design. Like as you mentioned in the intro, my background. So I went to film school. I dropped out. I joined an insurance company, was losing my mind. Then,
yeah.
Started a rare book business, and pretty much on the side as part of that business, really had to learn like graphic design and Adobe. I took that to the journal company, and just through the years, like I would always learn just graphic design and drawing and sketching. That kind of translated once I came here. I would do everything sort of crudely in Photoshop to like tweak the shoe design a little bit here and there. And really it just became a combination of like Sebastian liked what I liked. As I mentioned, like seeing the Jordan 4, I was like, okay, can we do something that's like a little bit more grown up and kind of a boot concept? Or I'll go through like Pinterest all the time, or I'll see like luxury brands. I'm like, okay, this is a $1,200 shoe, $800 shoe. Can we make something that's, you know, kind of a similar vibe of this, more affordable? Or like, how can I take components from this shoe and then combine it with this? So it's like a combination of self-taught and just messing around in Photoshop, getting samples back from the factory. And it's just a sort of weird give and take process of things I like, sketching it in Photoshop, getting samples back from the factory, editing that. And I mean, our creative process goes very quick in that once we kind of have a concept, like let's see it in hand. You can have the best concept on paper once you sketch it, but like once you actually see it in hand and like the feel of it, it's gonna be completely different. So it's a lot of kind of, I don't know, just here and there, just kind of sketching sample, and kind of figuring it out.
What is that timeline between when you settled on a design and actually getting it in hand? How long do you have to wait?
So once we have the final sketch, then you're looking at like, depending, 2 to 3 weeks to get a sample. If you want an edit, another 2 to 3 weeks for that sample, and so on, depending on how many samples you want. Once you finally decide on the sample, like if you're freight shipping, so boat shipping from China, then that's usually a month and a half, 2 months, depending on how long it clears customs. If you're air shipping, you can cut that down to 2 or 3 days, but way more expensive. So pretty much from like start to finish, from a final sketch to landed in your warehouse, I mean, you're looking like typically 3 months. I mean, the entire design process, you're looking for us for like closer to like 6-7 months with like designs.
When you're setting the designs, you talked a little bit about inspiration from other, you know, products and maybe doing a little bit differently. How much of your design inspiration is like trying to create a brand new trend in and of itself around like maybe not necessarily a silhouette, but maybe like a color combination or something that you're trying to innovate around?
We always like, this is the always like internal debate, which is not wanting to be too fashion forward because like we're not like a high fashion like we live somewhere in between like a conservative brand and like a high fashion brand, we'll say.
Sure.
And it's sort of like we 100% pay attention to trends, but we're not like so trend forward that we're really trying to come out with the craziest new thing currently. As we kind of went from slightly tweaking shoes to now, like one of the boots we came out last year is this Atlas boot, like was more of like a complete ground up original design. We're starting to go more from just like slightly kind of trend forward to like, all right, let's throw out some more ideas that are completely brand new. Maybe that'll be like 10-15% of our line going forward and see if it sticks. The other is more so like, we like this color combination. It looks cool. We like this material. It looks cool. It might not be currently in the market, but we like it. So let's just see if it works. It's very much like an experimental mindset. It's now more so just a question of like quantities and kind of forecasting like, okay, if this hits, then we're either gonna have to eat the cost in terms of air shipping, which is usually significantly more, or it just sells out. Great, we got a little bit splash, and then like we bring something new next year. So it's like that constant battle of like wanting to do something crazy, but if it takes off, then or the forecast.
Yeah, that's got to be such a difficult part of the business is forecasting, because I'm in technology sales as my day job, right? And I forecast our business on a weekly basis, and I forecast generally like the next 90 days. Sometimes it's 120, 150, just depending on where we're at. And it's one of the most difficult parts of my job. And but my part of the business, we're focused on large enterprise, so we're not walking or working off of a lot of volume. It's definitely, it's like smaller volume but larger deal sizes. So, but for yourself, I mean, you're talking about like hundreds, thousands, like forecasting that type of stuff across so many different product lines. Like that's crazy complex. And when you're introducing a brand new concept, like you don't know if it's going to splash or not, and then maybe you'll have to eat the cost for air freight, or maybe it just is a hit, and then you move on to the next one. That's crazy. But really, and it's got to be one of the most difficult parts of your job. I know you talk a lot about supply chain resiliency, and the importance of that as a core competency. Can you talk a little bit? And I'm just super curious about how you maintain resiliency in the supply chain as you're introducing the new products, and like you're not even certain if it's going to hit or not.
We fortunately we work with somebody, our woman, her name is Vicky, we work with in China, who deals directly with the factories, and she has a team too. And so like she's always in like the markets looking at different leathers, working with the factory. And she's really good about that. If we have, say, a certain pattern that's hard, she'll recreate it with the factory with like the leather workers to actually like keep sourcing it. It's been very rare where if something like took off where they're just like, sorry, we ran out of leather. To redo it, it would be crazy expensive for us to recreate it. So like in general, it doesn't happen. So the biggest is if you want like say a certain type of outsole, certain outsoles, like the minimums on them can be like multiple thousands. So we're like, okay, we're not willing to commit to that. Or if you want a new mold, then again, it might be for each size, depending on it, like, a few $1,000s. So we haven't gone too deep into that yet, just because like the cost when you have to start doing everything custom, that gets very expensive. But like I say, in general, we haven't had too many issues as far as like running out like of either an outsole or a pattern or a piece of leather.
I know you just returned from Chicago. And your flagship store is in Chicago. So what was going on there?
So this past Thursday, we just had a launch party for our spring summer collection. So So the current way we do it is we drip out every Friday, kind of like a very sneakerhead model of dropping out like a few shoes at a time. And we do that through the summer. That's both kind of a marketing standpoint, but also just like, yeah, it just gives us something new to talk about every week. So this event was a chance for everybody in Chicago to see the entire collection. And pretty much this was an invite only. We had about 80 people come through, and it was really just this entire spring collection is about playfulness, adult playfulness, and being just more fun with your style. It's very colorful. It's a lot more prints. So it was just an event for that.
Cool. What are a couple of your favorite examples?
So I kind of have like two ends of the spectrum. Like part of my favorites are these like pink lug sole dress shoes that are coming out with. Patent leather pink, which is just bold. They're a little bit more outfit specific, but very like summery shoe. And then the other ones, which we're gonna come out with next week, which is kind of more of like a classic black loafer. It does have some like floral embossing to it, but it's like definitely more of a parable shoe. So like in general, even for myself, I tend to gravitate more of the parable shoe, but it just has like a special detail. Like right now I'm wearing our patent leather loafers in green, but you can pretty much wear them with everything. And then for more bolder shoes, it's kind of like when I want to go out, like for this event, and wear a lot bolder of a shoe.
You talk about what you wear for a particular event. I talk a lot about what I want to wear on a business trip versus what I want to wear out on a date night versus what I want to wear out for like a big event. Like, for example, the spring summer collection reveal in Chicago. So how do you think about your personal style?
It's still a challenge because we're as I mentioned earlier, we're like with more men getting into fashion, and especially like living in San Diego, for example, it's just like the style is very casual and very like can be very athleisure-ish. And like seeing that like a lot of guys will stick to your standard like white sneaker, or if you're more in punk rock is go with like a Doc Marten. So we're trying to meet some of those guys. Like the more conservative end of the line is more that sort of like, okay, here's something that's like pairable with everything. But maybe it's like in patent leather that you wouldn't usually wear, or maybe it has like some sort of embossing or some sort of special detail. So like even for myself, that's what I tend to wear to more on a day-to-day basis. When I'm going to more like an event that I just went to, then it's like, okay, let me wear a more statement piece. If as my wife has gotten more into fashion, like, and she's dressed bolder, she's helped me like, okay, even if we're going to like a cocktail bar, like, let's just have fun tonight. Like, let's dress in something that's more colorful, that has more prints, that's, maybe a little bit looser fitting. So it's like, I think in the past, it's like almost like I wanted to have like a specific style where like now it's more so like, okay, let me just like play around a lot more. For certain events, okay, it calls for to be a little more conservative, but like let me just still have my edge. And then for other events where like I know there's gonna be a lot more fashion people, then it's like, all right, this is the time to kind of like be like Halloween and dress up and like peacock.
Yeah. Peacock. That's hilarious. My wife called me a peacock this weekend. Hey, this is Eric. I'm a sneakerhead and I love luxury watches. Timely Souls combines both passions. We help enthusiasts to tastefully pair the right sneaker and watch, be distinctive, have fun, and look good for one of three occasions: the big event, the business trip, or date night. Think about the opportunities when you merge the right color scheme, story, and design when you match the right sneaker and watch. That's what fuels my passion here at Timely Souls. Welcome to Timely Souls, where time meets style. I was wearing the Otis green Crocskin leather combat boots to the barn, and she said I was peacocking. But we'll get to those in a moment. I like the the phrase that you used, statement piece, right? And then, being peacocking a bit, right? So do you accessorize with other items in your wardrobe? Like, for me, I try to accessorize and have a story behind my shoe and my watch. Do you think about like a combination of how you're, what you're putting your shoe with, or are you just letting the shoe like tell the story? How do you think about that?
Like I usually start with a shirt, depending on that color, that then I kind of go to
Mhm.
pants and
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
kind of dictates like the shoe. Sometimes it's the other way around. So like it for
Yeah.
me, it really much depends. Like more so like the mood I'm feeling that day and like what do I want to go
Right.
more conservative? Do I want to like push it? Um, as time has gone on and I've got more confident in my style, I tend to gravitate towards like, let me see if I can actually pull off the shoe
Yeah.
this time. Like especially like the green Otis boot that you mentioned. Like that's a bold, like it's a green Crocskin boot. Like it's a bold boot,
It's crazy. I
and
love it.
it's it's something that like even a few years ago I wouldn't even wear, but now I'm like, you know what? Hey, like if that's going to be more a bolder piece, then I'll typically tend to tone down my pants, my shirt. I'll
Mm.
probably go with a more like classic accessory. I mean, I'm always wearing. I personally love Casio watches. I always wear my gold Casio watch,
Mhm.
but then
Mhm.
I'll go a little more toned down in terms of like what I'm wearing up top and with accessories.
Mhm.
Like I won't go as crazy of a sunglasses or not as crazy of a watch if I'm going something bolder on the feet.
Yeah.
Um, I think the one thing I like, so prior to moving to San Diego, my wife and I lived in Europe for 5 months. And what was like really apparent there was like men like to dress up. Like dressing up is not seen as something weird. It wasn't like, it was just like, it just seemed to be like the norm. And coming back and then having like friends who are gay, like it was always like style for them, like what you wouldn't think twice of it, but like for somehow, especially like white guys, it seemed that like, oh, dressing up is somehow feminine or gay. And like we're trying to like kind of erase that stereotype too of like, look, fashion is for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're, a white guy, like you can pull off a statement piece. You can dress in these things and like it's a matter of self-expression. And that's something that as I've gotten more confident in my style, I'm more willing to reach for something bolder because I'm like, oh, this would be fun. This would be fun to wear
Mhm.
and more represent like how I'm feeling inside versus like, okay, let me just play it safe because I want to get the approval of these people.
I love everything that you just shared there. I think that there is like this moment, and you kind of described it in your comments, where like men's fashion is really hitting a trajectory of like growth, and people are getting more comfortable with self-expression and letting what they wear and what they accessorize with, um, you know, show character and kind of really demonstrate how they're feeling on the inside and obviously on the outside. Yeah, for me, I look at what I wear on my feet and what I wear on my wrist primarily from like a business standpoint, because that is what I'm thinking about most, and like where I'm engaging most, as an icebreaker and as a way to be memorable, to be distinctive, and to have fun. Um, and I always get compliments. Like when I'm at a trade show, when I go to meet that new prospect or customer in a lobby, we'll make eye contact, and they'll like make a comment about my shoes. Like they always see the shoes and they're like, hey, those are awesome shoes. Like love those. And we'll like start a little conversation. And I'll say, well, hey, let me tell you a little bit about what's on my wrist and like why I decided to pair this shoe and this watch. And it just turns into like a great icebreaker. And then you kind of move into the business thing, but you're memorable, right? And then like people, I was at a dinner in New York City. We were hosting it for about 10 or 12 clients, and kind of shared some similar stories as what I just mentioned. And afterwards, I was getting texts from a couple of the guys that I met, of like their favorite shoes that are crazy that they actually match with their daughter's shoes, or like a watch that they have always loved and wear, for whatever reason. So it's a great way to not only like look good and feel good, but to also really create like that special connection with people that you meet and to be memorable. So speaking of bold designs and being memorable, let's talk about the Otis Green Crocskin leather combat boot. And so that this, and thank you so much for sending a pair to me. I've got,
of course,
got one of them right here. It has the dirt on it from the barn, from the weekend. Like, I mean, I'm getting these things out and I'm wearing them, and I'm feeling great. They're comfortable. Like I wore them out at the barn. My girls, have horses, and it was great. Super comfortable, high quality. I was a little worried when I got them because they were a size 11. I usually wear an 11.5, but they fit perfectly for me in a size 11. So you definitely, you fit me correctly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You fit me very well. And I'm really enjoying them, and I'm matching them with my Panerai watch, which we'll get to in a moment as well. But would love for you to just, kind of talk to the audience about this boot, right? You kind of alluded to a little bit earlier before, super bold. I saw a guy in your Instagram, like out with no shirt on and like shorts and these things plowing through the snow. I mean, like this is a badass boot.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, like our boots are definitely more like, you're not going to wear them for outdoorsy type things, but like you can. And as our, so the guy you're talking to is Mike. He actually works in a warehouse. He does literally cold plunges every week, and he wore that Otis boot out to his cold plunge. And then afterwards, like when we did the photo shoot, he was just in the snow without a shirt on wearing that. And luckily, even after the snow and like the water and everything, like the boot held up, didn't get any really stains. So I was like, okay, that's not our intention, but it's good to hear. So that boot is made from calf leather with that printed like crocodile pattern on it. So it has, as you know, kind of like a sort of like the shine on it. And then the inside of it is sheepskin suede. So in general, there's like sheepskin suede. All the suede tends to be like the most soft. And so like it's a kind of balance between the sort of like stiffer structure of the green Crocskin leather and then the suede, which gives it some movement. And then that sole is this thick lug rubber sole for sort of like more the durability. And I mean, it's an awesome boot, and it's surprisingly pretty lightweight too, which is the other thing where you can wear that for a long time, and like your feet are not going to get that tired.
Totally, yeah. Like I said, I saw the guy, and that's cool that he's an employee in the warehouse. So I saw him on your Instagram page plowing through the snow and those things, and I was like, I'm going to wear him to the barn. I'm going to really put him to the test. And so it was great. I loved it. And I feel like I could take him like directly from the barn and then like walk out on date night. Right. I mean, I'd be killing it. And super versatile from that perspective. So really have enjoyed wearing mine. And were you a part of like the design team on this one, or like was there any story about like why Crocskin, why Otis Green? It's like so crazy bold. What inspired that?
So it was Sebastian and I wanting to come out with another combat boot. So I mean, our Aiden, as I mentioned, like that's our best selling boot, and the entire line was good. But we're like, okay, we want to come out with a combat boot that is like that but different. And so we just kind of started going on Pinterest and seeing different combat boots, elements we liked, didn't like, and then also trying to keep in the same vein of Aiden. So that kind of informed the actual silhouette of the shoe. And then, so green is a very tricky color for us because to date, I don't know why we even did that in green, because green historically has not worked out for us, but we're like, you know what, fuck it, let's try it again.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to try green in another boot. And then the Crocskin part of it was earlier in the year, we came out with this brown loafer that was in Crocskin. That did really well for us.
Mm.
So we're like, okay, if we're going to do green again, like, let's do two things that are difficult and see if it works together. And fortunately, that was actually one of our best sellers last year.
I
Like
bet.
that colorway, that boot.
I bet. Yeah. When I first started to explore your brand, it arrested me. It didn't catch me. It arrested me when I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I gotta contact these guys, figure out what's going on, and I gotta get my hands on a pair of these. So I really, really have enjoyed wearing them, and thank you again. And so when I was at the barn, I paired them with my Panerai watch, right? And so and actually when I got home, I noticed I had some horse snot on my watch, on the crystal. I was like, all right, I guess I deserve that for putting my my watch on at the barn, and really peacocking there. But I thought Panerai would be a like perfect pairing with this boot, primarily because I was able to take the black dial of the Panerai, and I was able to put a custom strap on it that literally matched the exact color of the Crocskin green, or Otis green Crocskin. And I think together it looks really, really good. Just for my audience's purposes, let me kind of give a little bit of an introduction into like what Panerai is, like from a luxury watch brand perspective. So Panerai was actually founded in 1860. And they were founded really as like kind of a initial like watch shop and workshop in Florence, Italy. And they quickly gained recognition for their craftsmanship and innovative watchmaking techniques. And really one of the critical moments in the heritage of the brand was in the early 20th century, when they became a really pivotal supplier of watches for the Royal Italian Navy. So that really marked their entry into military horology. And if you look at, a lot of watch brands, so like particularly kind of the higher end, many of them have a heritage in some type of, space exploration, military venture, aviation, nautical exploration. And I think that's one of the most attractive things to me about the luxury watch market is the heritage behind these manufacturers. It's not only about like the precision of the movements and the automation and the beauty of the design, but the heritage behind it that tells an amazing story. And I think really when you think about the pairing and the accessorizing between a watch and a shoe or a boot, a sneaker, or whatever it is, it just becomes like an unbelievably powerful story that you can tell to anybody that you meet on any particular occasion. So this particular Panerai, it's a Luminor. In 1993, Panerai launched the Luminor collection, which has become iconic for them. And so that's probably one of the most significant events in their timeline. So this particular watch, which I'll be showing in an overlay here, is called the Panerai PM 233. And it's an 8-day power reserve, which is pretty unique. So, if you wind it up to those 8 days, it's going to last you. Most of the automatic watches that you kind of see have like a 48 or 72-hour power reserve. So it's pretty special to have an 8-day power reserve on a watch. And it's also a GMT, right? So it covers multiple time zones for you, for anybody that's traveling. So it's really like the embodiment of kind of the upper echelon of the Panerai market in their watches and in watchmaking. So it's got a 44 millimeter case, water resistance. It's got to be water resistant, of course, with the Italian Navy heritage, up to 100 meters of reliable functionality. And it's got that sapphire crystal on it. It is, by and large, like a scratch resistant sapphire crystal. That's why I wasn't like too freaked out about taking it to the barn, and it handled the horse snot quite well. And it's got the Arabic and stick markers, really kind of aesthetic. So I definitely have enjoyed wearing my Panerai along with the Marc Nolan Crocskin boots, and I'm looking forward to wearing them much more often together, because I think it really tells a story of like beautiful aesthetic. I think, you know, green is my favorite color for me personally. So anything that I can do to accessorize around that color is super cool to me. And I think that's why, you know, your boots caught my attention immediately. And then why putting this custom strap on the Panerai was just a super bold and distinctive look that brought both of these accessories together and really makes an incredible pairing. And I posted on my Instagram yesterday, I think it was, you know, kind of a picture of me starting with the boot and then kind of rolling up to the wrist and like rolling it over and showing the strap. And it hit really hard. And you know, definitely one of my favorite pairings that I pulled together so far. So yeah, so thank you again for sharing that boot and for giving me and my opportunity with the audience to share the story of this particular watch.
What give us the fit check. What'd you wear? I didn't see the post yet, but what'd you wear up with the pants, shirt? What'd you wear with it?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm at the barn, right? And so I learned a lesson one of my while I was there about the jacket I should not wear. So I wore, actually, I'm a huge fan of Todd Snyder and his clothing brand. This is a Todd Snyder polo here. And he actually did a collaboration with LL Bean, and I've got a lot of that collection because I think it's just super, super cool. So there's actually like a fleece jacket that Todd Snyder did with LL Bean, and I wore that. And it's like kind of a greenish, blackish fleece color. And the horse is my oldest daughter's horse. Like, really, you know, we're kind of like trying to get it to like stop nipping, and it literally was trying to eat my jacket because I thought it was grass. So I was like, I gotta stop. I can't wear this anymore. And then I just wore like kind of, you know, typical jeans. I think it's just like some Todd Snyder basic, you know, kind of work jeans. And yeah, like I think 3/4 of my closet is Todd Snyder stuff. So just a big fan of his brand and what he does. So yeah, it's that was kind of the fit. That was the fit with it. I did feel like the fleece zip up did have like a nice aesthetic match with the green, because it did have like literally a similar tint of green as the boot and the strap on the watch. So it kind of all fit together nicely. But it wasn't the best choice for the setting
For the horses.
yeah, for the horses. But I still was peacocking. Any last thoughts, you know, for the audience here, Kevin, just on, you know, like Marc Nolan and you know, obviously you shared kind of like what's coming in the spring and summer line, you know, accessorizing. Any thoughts on like what you're going to match with your next Casio, you know, whatever, like however you want to leave the audience.
Yeah, I think as a brand, we've been, as I said, we're like doing a lot of experimental stuff. I mean, we've been trying to kind of more hone in, like, okay, if we're going to be this sort of more playful, bold brand, we're definitely starting to lean more into that going forward. To be a little bit more like, okay, we're that brand where it's not, you don't have to pay like kind of designer prices, but it's still really high quality, but just more accessible. So we're trying to play in that space for people who are kind of like 30 plus in general, or guys who are like, okay, I want an alternative to sneakers. And I say in general, as a brand, we're focusing a lot more on maybe keeping like 20% of our collection year to year, and then 80% of it's kind of more one and done. So that's kind of going to be a shift too, going forward. So basically, if you see something you like during the season, I'd probably grab it. Otherwise, it's not going to be around next year.
Right. And would you ever consider retroing?
So there's certain shoes we say like, okay, limited edition, and like we will not bring those back. But like if it was one that we decided to discontinue, I could see bringing it back. That's actually a battle I have with the owner. I'm like, okay, if we're gonna commit to this, like, you know, if we're saying limited, definitely not bringing it back. But I would like to have something fresh each season, and maybe like 20% of it be like core styles.
Yeah, super cool. Kevin, thank you so much for joining the Time Meets Style podcast. Really, really cool to hear about how the Marc Nolan brand started and how it's evolved over time. Obviously, like the struggles and how you guys overcame that. And, congratulations on just really the incredible success. You have an amazing brand, an amazing assortment of product. Very, very cool. I can't wait to see more of the spring and summer collection. And I'm definitely going to be wearing much more Marc Nolan going forward. So thank you for joining.
Where time meets style.